So welcome to our Pau Hana today here at First Unitarian Church of Honolulu. Today's a little different. Quarterly, I usually have some kind of presentation after a worship service, and then I sort of just open the floor for questions. And it struck me that I haven't done that in the time of COVID. So I thought I will be doing it probably in November on a subject, but I thought it would be good to just kind of have an evening of asking questions. There's a lot going on for folks these days, and or just random trivia, which I love to get, sports trivia, whatever. Sort of what I call open season on the minister, just sort of whatever question is floating for people, with the understanding that I will do my best to answer every question. But if there's something that I don't know the answer to, I can't, or if there's something that for whatever reason is too personal or something like that, I probably won't. But before we do that, I think Janice has an announcement that she'd like to make.
Yeah, I was hoping more people would log on. Thank you, TJ. On behalf of the auction team, I'd like to remind everybody that the silent auction is going to close at midnight Thursday, which is, Thursday, October 22nd. And for those of you who are messed up with days and calendar things, that's 3 days. So that's going to be Thursday, October 22nd at midnight. We shut down. But in the meantime, the bidding is still hot. So browse through so you don't miss, a great bargain that's just going to have to come up, or something that didn't catch your eye before that all of a sudden appeals to you. And on Saturday, the 24th, from 6 to 8, our live auction on Zoom begins. Mr. Rogers is going to be our guest of honor, and it's going to be a really fun evening. There's going to be entertainment, some activities that are fun, and of course, some great items to bid on. Your participation is really important, and I'm talking to the choir here because I was hoping to catch a few people who maybe have not been so involved in the auction, because this is our major fundraiser in the year. And so invite your friends and encourage them to come too, so we can really make this fundraiser a success. Bid often, bid generously. I'll see you Saturday.
Thanks so much, Janice.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So I think the format for today can be just like usual. If you have something you don't want to ask out loud or something like that, you can put it to me privately in the chat. And since I'm a grown-up and can take it, if you want to just put questions right in the chat this time around, that's fine. I don't need to curate that. I'll do my best to answer them. Or if people have questions they just want to ask, that would be great. And we'll go until we have absolutely every question on everybody's mind answered to their full and complete satisfaction. So that's the plan. And yeah, I think next week we'll be doing a filming of the Now That You Asked Me television show with a colleague, just to warn everyone in advance, a colleague from a more conservative church, because I think it would be interesting to have sort of a dialogue with folks who see things very differently. We tend to also have a lot of conversations with folks who see things very similarly to us. So just give everyone some trigger warnings for next week. But could not be more charming. He's one of my good friends. And so yeah, just some preview for next week. So yeah, does anyone have anything that's on their mind that they wanna ask me or chat about?
Yes, I do, Mike.
All right, Mike, go for it.
TJ, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about your experience on Sunday at the Central Union Church.
Oh, I'd be happy to. Sure. Surprisingly, for a church their size, they are very relaxed about worship. I asked Brandon when I should be there, and he's like, yeah, between 9 and 9:30. Their service started at 10, just like ours. And it was just in his office, and they used sort of a funny little background. It was just like in his office, so we used the Central Union background. One of the things that's different is that everything that isn't a professional minister is filmed in advance. And so it cuts down on some of the technical aspects that we do we try to have as much as we can live, which is, I just think there's something to that myself. So it was interesting having where so much of it was filmed, which which also allowed for us to talk a little bit more than we normally do in our worship, because so much is live and we're kind of on camera. So me and Brandon could kind of talk about what's coming up, which is why I realized we needed less rehearsal, because he could kind of talk me through the next segments. So that was different. I got some, I mean, when you go into a Christian church and say there's no such thing as hell, you're gonna get some responses. And so I did. I did get some emails, but mostly actually people kind of interested in the church. And so I confessed to Brandon, I was like, some of your people are writing to me to meet up and talk about the church. And he's like, well, they're either looking to jump ship or looking to convert you. So just let me know which one. But actually it turned out, I didn't know some of my friends go to that church. I just didn't even know. So I got some text messages afterwards from some friends I've done some service work with. And that was kind of nice. And actually one then went on our site and found one of my weekly reflections and commented on that, my friend Linda. So I think it was really a nice experience of kind of, you know, coming together and doing something like that. So maybe that's a longer answer to how it was, but it was good. I thought it was fun. So yeah, so that was how
Justice. You talked about justice, right?
Yeah, it kind of had the similar opening to a sermon I did. I told the same story at the beginning of a sermon I did in 2018 about justice, but then the whole sort of second half, I'm going to try to get the link up before the notice goes out tomorrow. So if people want to watch it, what they do though is they film their whole service. So I'm going to try to figure out what part of the service it starts at. And then I actually played and sang the hymn after the sermon live, which was kind of fun. They hadn't had any live music, folks. This was their first live music in the pandemic. It was me playing and singing.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, so yeah, that might be the most, when I heard that might have been the most kind of shocking thing, because they have paid section leaders, paid musician, like their music staff is huge, and none of them were doing anything live. So I don't know. I think your spirits and Dennis have done a great service to us, working as hard as they have to get as much live music as we've been able to. So where we can, but anyway, yeah, that was some of my experience. Now I took a bunch of time talking about that. So any other questions?
Thank you for that.
Sure. Thanks, Mike.
So TJ.
Yes.
And Reverend, hi, good to see you back.
Thanks.
Reverend Sinkford said something about, about spirituality and stuff like that. He said something like, many members of the church, they've been a chair of this and president of this and been on the board and they've done everything. And then what? And then what? They become minister. Now, I know that was not your trajectory. What was your trajectory?
Well, my trajectory was not that far off. I joined a church when I moved to New York City from when I finished law school and moved to New York City. I wasn't going to church in law school. There just wasn't time. Like I didn't feel particularly holy. My first apartment in New York City after law school was on 54th and 10th, which is where the Stephen Colbert show was being filmed, or the Daily Show is filmed, where Trevor Noah is. It's on the same street, way over on the west side. But two friends of mine from college who went to Eastman School of Music and met there and got married were working at a church on 54th in Lexington, St. Peter's, which was the jazz church, is what it's kind of known as in New York City, because they have jazz vespers every Sunday at 5 o'clock. And they'd have really famous jazz musicians play at jazz vespers. And so my trajectory, actually, I became a member of that church. Then they asked me to serve on an arts council or something like that for 1 year. Then I was on the nominating committee for 2 years. Then they put me on the board, and I served on the board for 2 years. And then I was the liaison for the church to the city. So I was like working sort of as like because the church was like a performance space, a public performance space. So it was highly valuable, and it was in Midtown. So the city would use it often for classical performances and things like that. Or other arts groups, not just the city. And so I cooked dinner for 250 people. I did like a jazz, I was like in charge of the food for a big benefit concert. It's called All Night Soul. So I did a lot of stuff at a church. I was kind of that person, honestly. I did have a long church trajectory. And then when I went to All Souls, when I moved to the Unitarian Church, I mean, I never believed a lot of the stuff that the Lutheran Church, my friends were just there, which is actually how most people go to church. They just go to church where their friends go. But when I just felt called for ministry, I started going to a church that was more in line with my personal theology. And that's when I was at All Souls, and they put me on the worship team, and then I was a worship associate. And then, so the same thing kind of happened. I started moving through. So that actually is my story, which is probably why I laughed so loud. So.
Wow, I had no idea. I'm glad I asked. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a real church nerd. Yeah.
You are. You did all those things, scrub work. Good for
yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yep. So it was a lot. So for me, it was part of it also. We see that a lot. I think one of the ways he could have gone, and I say this a lot, is that sometimes people go to church long enough, and it sounds weird, and I don't mean for this to sound defeatist or whatever, but some people go to church and grow and heal in ways that the church doesn't hold them as a container anymore. Like they kind of sail, or they go free and they do other things and maybe keep their connection. And sometimes that looks like ministry, is that they're moving into kind of a different mode of that. Sometimes it looks like social justice or social action in another way. But I love it when that happens for people that are following their passion. For me, it just so happened it moved in that direction. So, yeah. Anyone else? We have more people here now, Janice. Maybe we'll let you make your announcement again toward the end.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you missed it, the latecomers, but I'll do it again. Thank you. I want to reach as many people, or the auction team wants to reach as many people as possible. So,
good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else coming up?
I have a question.
Sure, Allison.
Yes. Can you recommend a good way to learn golf?
So for those of you who don't know, I play golf. I know this is a closely guarded secret. I don't know why I have some sort of personal shame.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to out you.
Oh, that's fine. I am not. I can now get through a few courses on the island with only one sleeve of balls. That's still kind of how I measure my game. So I can't say that I'm a great golfer, but I can hang. Main thing I found is just getting out. I started playing the 9-hole course at Hawaii Kai. There's a par 3 9-hole course in Hawaii Kai. It's super cheap. They let you still have the cart, so you get the whole cart experience. You can practice your irons and you can practice your putting. I probably played that course exclusively for the first year I was here. I went into Roots and Relics, which is downtown by Town Hall. And I told them, I want to walk out of here and spend $100 and I want a bag and a full set of clubs. They put it all together. I had a very silly bag they gave me for free because I think it's a lady's bag, but I don't really care. And it works. They gave me a set of irons from the 80s. And now I eventually found a driver for about $15, actually at Hawaii Kai Pro Shop, that was used. So So $100 at Roots and Relics, and about a year on the par 3 course in Hawaii Kai. And then then you learn how to drive the ball. And after that, you can pretty much hang at a lot of the sort of the courses here. There are a few that are just crazy. I think I went through 35 balls once playing Royal Hawaiian over the poly. I'm not kidding. I really think it was 35 balls. And so I only play that course about once a year because it's so beautiful. It is beautiful. And like you are in a jungle playing golf, and there's no course on earth like it. There are some holes that I just skipped now there. So all that being said, someone did buy me a lesson. Someone did buy me a lesson at Golf Tech downtown. And in about an hour, that guy, the gentleman there, Andrew, I think, fixed about 4 things in just an hour that have made a big difference also. So when you get to the point where you can swing the club and have enough to teach, taking a few lessons from somebody who knows what they're doing really makes a big difference. So I hope that's
very helpful. Yes.
Good. I'm glad. I've been enjoying golf in Hawaii a great deal. Now everyone just knows. Sorry.
TJ,
Yes.
I've really been enjoying your reports on your progress with your jogging.
Oh, okay.
And I'm wondering if you have in the past or planning on doing the Honolulu Marathon at some point?
I think I'm at the stage where if they ever have races again, I probably would train and do it. That would probably be the one I do. Running conditions in this state are simply ideal. Training, then running. The mornings are cool. When I did the Aloha run, I mean, it wasn't great, but for me, time-wise, but that's a whole I didn't sleep that night. And then, but yeah, I'd probably give it a shot. I'd want to do a half first. I've done a few half marathons in my life, but I think if I'm going to do a marathon, it would probably be Honolulu. I think friends of mine who are distance runners who moved to DC have said when they reopen, they would come and run it too. So I'd probably run it with friends. So yeah, that's not a promise, but I do think I'd give it a shot. And I really only ever want to do one marathon. I don't know. It's just not something I have a desire to do a bunch of, but I'd like to knock one out. So yeah.
When did you have your most recent dance class?
My most recent dance class, I haven't taken class. I mean, probably with my parents. When I go home, my parents are ballroom dancers. They've been dancing for 20 years. They go on cruises and stuff. I mean, they really dance. So when I go home, they often will have just like a group lesson, and they always want a gentleman who can lead and who can keep rhythm. It really doesn't matter that much because a lot of the ladies just want to practice some of the moves going around, and it's just enough to be able to pass hands. So pretty often, I guess I'll go home, and if they're having
I see.
a lesson. So and I think we all took a lesson before. Oh yeah, I guess that was a few years ago, but yeah, as far as I haven't taken like a real dance class in quite some time, like one that hurts. So, yeah.
You were able to talk about releve though.
Right. I mean, in college, you have to take a year of ballet, and I studied before that as well. Yeah. So, but it was pretty intense ballet. It wasn't like normal. It was within the dance school. You know, I mean, Cincinnati has a dance school, and so that's where it was. It was quite something. So I sometimes had 3 dance classes a day in college. I'd start in jazz in the morning and have ballet and then have tap in the evening. So
I figured, yeah.
Yeah, that was a very different time and place, friends. So the funny thing about musical theater school is that like, you don't have that much homework, but you're in class from 8 a.m. till 10 p.m. every day.
Oh my God.
Except for Sunday. Yeah, like you have music theory at 8 o'clock. Then I'd have jazz dance at 10. Then I'd have like acting at 12. And then I'd have like modern at 2. And then maybe I'd have time for dinner. And then you'd be in rehearsal for 3 or 4 hours for whatever show you're in. It was exhausting. So yeah, it's just a very different way of learning. So than most people are used to. Yeah.
So can we ever expect a sermon based with a kind of Hamilton-esque theme?
So you want to hear something? I shouldn't say this because I know now you're going to want it. So Jazzy, if anyone watched my interview of Jazzy Bostock,
Yeah.
she referred to a moment in divinity school where I was asked to preach. It's an honor to be asked to be preaching at divinity school. And so I did my sermon from the piano, playing like a background track and actually doing spoken word, like to the background track I was playing. And then I got the whole congregation to sing the hook, to actually sing I did one of those at All Souls too, during like a contemporary worship service, like that the young kids put on. So the answer is, it could happen. You could be in the room where it happened.
Okay, wait.
Where it happens.
Bid at the live auction for him to do that sermon. There's your chance.
There we go.
So that was the sermon that when Jazzy kind of said, she was like, I think everyone remembers your preaching or whatever, something like that. That's what she meant. That it was a little bit of an unorthodox and dare I say popular exposition. So
maybe I can gather together some other people who would be interested in going in on the same theme with me. Because I recall from last year that this was quite a hot ticket item.
They both
to
were.
choose your sermon topic. Yes.
So we'll see how that works. Bill, did you have your hand up?
So if anyone's interested, let me know.
I had my hand up in response to Allison.
I'd
I'd be willing to chip in on that one.
Okay, we'll talk.
All right.
Carolyn too.
All right.
Okay, there you go. Well, this could
Here
be
you
fun.
go, TJ. It's off and running.
All right. They tend to be shorter. It's not like 15 minutes. It's more like 5 to 7. So no one wants to hear someone sing for 15
If you add Mr. Rogers into that one,
Yeah.
Do a little tap on the side. I mean, this could be
In fairness about the tap, just so everyone knows, I was asked to do a little tap number or something in the auction, and I said I'm not going to dance. At Portland, Duro and I did it was a crazy year, and Duro and I did a show that I actually have a copy of, and I could get permission to play. And there was this running joke that they were like, what's the next thing you can do, TJ? You gonna dance? Like, you can do this, you do that, or whatever. And so I did like a 32 bar tap solo in the middle of the show. And it was pretty funny. It was
But TJ, I've been waiting for the duet of you and Martina.
Yeah,
I'm waiting.
I've hung up the tap shoes for now. The best I can do is maybe a replay of the Duro and TJ concert.
Oh no!
So.
I heard many years ago from the building and grounds that they will not allow me to tap on that floor.
Yeah, we know we want a parquet, something brought in for tap. Yeah. So
what the sunroom?
Concrete would kill us.
Let's move on to see if, because we're already halfway there. And I'm not just being evasive. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on my tap background. I will only say this, that I once auditioned for a theater company. I got like a 3 in ballet and like a 4 in jazz and a 10 in tap. And so they called me back in and they were like, even though I wasn't really getting a call back, they're like, what is going on in your life that this is like, most people are the other way around or something like that. They're like, I have no idea. It's like, tap just has always made sense to me or whatever. And so it was really my first dance love. But partly that I was once at that level, to do it now, it feels funny because nothing works the way it's supposed to work anymore to do that. So there is a feeling of like loss and sadness in doing it. So I know this is only the beginning, folks. I'm many things that are going to be in that way. This is just one that makes me really feel it here. So, but yeah. Any other questions, thoughts?
TJ,
What are you, go ahead.
Mike and then Carolyn.
yes, as long as you're being so biographical this evening, I don't think I've ever heard, and maybe others haven't, the story of your transitioning from the legal profession into the ministerial profession.
Okay, yeah, that's there. This is what I say about that is that there's like an hour and a half like talk story version, and there's like a 30-second make sense version, but there is a 5-minute version that I will do for you. I've done some sermons kind of about this, but in a more practical way. What I often say is that in the way that I just described, church was a huge part of my life already. It wasn't like I like all of a sudden got churchified and went to. So remember, I was already doing church at a pretty high level. I don't mean high level. I mean just like the amount of time it was taking up in my day. So it was more just kind of like a balancing. Now that's the practical aspect. The spiritual aspect had a few different things that happened. On the same day that I did an IPO for a very well-known jewelry company, was the same day that Tyler Clementi, the 18-year-old Rutgers student, committed suicide when his roommate discovered or set a webcam up and filmed him with another man, and then sent it to a bunch of people. And there was this moment of just sitting here like, I'm making these people the richest people in their country. It was a Danish IPO. At the same time as people are literally throwing themselves off bridges, because someone didn't love them or wasn't there to protect them. And so actually the other associate who was working on that IPO also left the law. We both had kind of like, we just cried in our offices and we're just like, what are we doing? Like we're overlooking Park Avenue. We're like, and he was just miles away and there wasn't anyone there to help him. And so that was one. And then the other was my experience having work on my heart done and nearly dying. And so the combination of those two things were kind of like, what I say is that, what I often say is that it's like a course correction. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't just like, if you change 6 degrees to the right, you might not notice it for an hour, but you're certainly going to notice it, in 2 days. And so that was more like those two things kind of nudged me to move towards something that I felt had a little more meaning in the world. And so that would be it. The practical, I was already working in church, and then the spiritual, like there's got to be something else that I can be doing. So, and then I'll just say one last thing is I wasn't sure. So I worked in a church professionally. I wound up my law practice. Well, technically I just left it. It's still there. And worked at a church for about 1.5 years before I even started divinity school. I worked at the Riverside Church in New York City to just see if professional church work was something I was even interested in. And so those were all the kind of pivot points, I'd say. Yeah. We'll go Carolyn, then Nan.
I wonder what book you'd like to recommend.
Well, I just finished Freedom from Fear by Forrest Church. I'm reading a lot about fear right now just because of what could be happening in the next few weeks. I'm just getting gearing up. And so I read Freedom from Fear, which is a really interesting read. Forrest Church from All Souls in New York. He got kind of famous because I guess one of the sermons he gave after 9/11 got picked up by a lot of media and things like that. So he does this whole thing about what's so interesting about the book is what aged well and what doesn't. He has a whole half a chapter about Rudy Giuliani being such an amazing leader in New York City. Well, I mean, I was in New York City, you know, a week before 9/11. I had just left for law school. And I remember the response of Giuliani being incredible, like heroic, you know, and he talks about all these things. And so it was very weird to read it and see how something has aged so poorly. But then there are other aspects of it that were really good. I like that he breaks down fear into 4 different kinds of fear: dread, worry, anxiety, and the 4th one's escaping me, but that was really helpful. Insecurity, I think, was the other one. And so that was really good. And then the other one I'm reading is the one that I think like millions of people have read. I'm reading right now, which I'm enjoying, is Susan Jeffers' Facing Fear and Doing It Anyway, or something like that, which I'm reading more as like a book club with some friends. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Freedom from Fear was good. And it's like a mini book. It's like 130 pages done. So it was good. Nan, you had a question.
So we see how you switched from law to a divinity, becoming divine.
Can't hear you, Ann.
Oops. So how did you move from Catholicism through Lutheranism to Unitarian Universalism?
Sure.
I can understand how the church structure continues, but some of the content changes a little bit. And some of the people also are a little different.
So I can't say I was ever a believer in the tenets of Catholicism, like from the start. I did it more as a cultural, practical thing, and as an early audience for my potential stand-up comedy career. I was a holy terror in Catholic school. The only way I was allowed to be confirmed was that my parents had to teach the confirmation class, and so because I misbehaved so badly, well, it wasn't misbehaving; it was taking the power. It wasn't just misbehaving; it was telling jokes and these kinds of things that it's just not what volunteers for Sunday school signed up for, dealing with this one. And so I spent a lot of time in the quote principal's office at CCD and things like that. It just wasn't my bag. And honestly, I wouldn't say I was ever a Lutheran. You heard it here first. I was never a Lutheran. I was going to a Lutheran church because my friends from college were they ran the jazz program there, and it was dope. And so that was really it. I mean, from junior year of high school, when I read Oversoul, I was probably Unitarian at that point, certainly transcendental, or at least I like to imagine I was, like everyone in high school. You know, my cousin was a UU minister trained at Harvard, and so I knew what was kind of up with her, and I would talk to her a lot about things like that. So I know that's kind of like a cop-out answer, like I was always a Unitarian and I didn't really know it, but it's really like I was a troubled Catholic, a slightly less troubled in a Lutheran church, and finally not troubled in a Unitarian church. So in a sense, I might always have, you know, that was always where I was headed. So that's probably the answer. I would go to Catholic. So one of the things I like now about Catholic services is that I kind of know all the words and I know all the stuff. I understand the theology, and like I can go with my friends and not be triggered at all. Like because I know what it is and I have my own way of doing it. Like I was on Big Island and there's that beautiful church in Hilo, this beautiful old Catholic church. And my friend was just curious to see inside, and it was lunchtime. And I said, you know, most Catholic churches have 12:30 masses, like so people can have lunch and go to mass and have communion and go back to work. And so he wanted to go in, and it was so interesting. Like I knew everything that was happening, when to kneel, when to do the whole stuff. And he was like wearing his hat, and I was like, you might want to take your hat off. We're in church. He got annoyed, and he was like, oh, I don't like all these rules and all this stuff. I was like, I did try to warn you that like that, that might happen. So I don't know. I guess that's what I'd say. But someone's asking, what book did you say you read as a junior? Oh, sorry. I read an essay by Emerson called The Oversoul. Yeah, Over-Soul. They used to like to use dash a lot, or
Oversoul.
yeah, Oversoul. Hyphens, not a dash. Hyphen. Let's be exact here. But yeah, so that's sort of my story from that. So
Thank you.
yeah, sure. I see Richard's hand slowly creeping up.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a appropriate question or not, but I've spent the afternoon attending an online conference of the International Association of Human Caring, which is a sort of Caritas movement started mostly by nurses. Anyway, the word soul is being used quite a bit. And I continue to be confused by that word. And if you could shed any light on your understanding of the word soul, I would appreciate it. And if it's boring to everybody else, just forget about it and I'll go someplace else.
No, that's fine. I've gotten that question before. I think some people I'm looking at have asked me that question. I think the place to start with soul is probably its queen, Aretha Franklin.
I'll stop there then.
I think if something can have a queen and its queen is Aretha Franklin, it exists. So there's that. That's all I got. No, I'm kidding. So religions have a lot of different takes on this. You know, the Catholic Church in its actual teaching believes humans have a soul, but animals do not. Other non-human animals do not. And the oldest continuous religion on the face of the earth, Hindu, obviously believes that in the soul because of reincarnation. So Buddhism is sort of the Protestant version of Hinduism. And so you have
Never heard of that.
Yeah, it is very much so. And so they are both very linked in the idea of reincarnation. And so you have souls there, certainly in animals and in people that are moving around. So as we start to go around the globe and through history, what the soul means as something that, in essence, that's carried on to someone else or inherited or that's jostled around in the ladder of existence from different kinds of beings is something that's hugely adopted and believed by, you know, millions or billions of people already. That just talking about Catholic, Hindu, and Buddhist, you've got a lot of people talking about a soul at that point. Now, granted, I'm talking about Buddhism as sort of a putative soul because my belief is if you think reincarnation happens, then a soul has to exist. Some kind of being or some kind of essence that I'm calling a soul exists, which probably in translation is unfair. I'm not sure the Himalayan languages that feed into that text or the Asian languages that do would be the same. So those are some of the ideas that are around and that are there. Now, what I believe as a soul, you know, again, it comes down a little bit to me that it's very hard to be an atheist and sing in a choir, is because there is just something like powerful about folks being together and creating something that wasn't there, something unseeable, unknowable, but is yet there and clearly palpable. I've watched I've watched a number of people die in real time, you know, like holding their hands as they die. And so I think that experience also helped me think, I can't say what the soul is, but I know when it's gone. You know, maybe that's life. Maybe the answer for a cognate would just be life. And that would be totally understandable. I think if someone's like, well, I don't really believe in a soul, but I believe in life. And I don't think that the soul has some kind of permanence that goes on. Like, I think that one's essence might be transferred or transmuted into, you know, elements or oxygen or whatever that goes in. And then there's the old cowboy song about the about the, you know, the horse eats something and comes out, and then a flower grows, and they say, oh, Johnny, you never looked so good. You know, it's like a flower growing out of like horse poop. You know, it's like there's a reincarnation, and that's reincarnation. There's this old cowboy song about that. And so that's maybe another way to look at it. So I probably raised more questions than answers, but I think there are a lot of religions that strongly believe in a kind of soul and essence. And I think a lot of people have some kind of sense of it. But a lot of it's deeply personal. And for me, I think, yeah, working as a hospital chaplain on the critical care, I started, it was more what I saw the absence of, you know, than what I saw the presence of when I held those hands was probably one of the things that helped me think something's there. So, yeah. I'm going to go to some questions that have been sent to me privately in the chat real quick before we pick up other questions. One, have you composed any songs? Yeah, I write a lot of songs. So, yes. Sometimes as gifts to friends. Sometimes just for fun. But yeah, writing, I share a lot of my writing with like a writing of words with people pretty regularly. Sharing songs is much more deeply personal. It's not something, it's hard to explain. There isn't anything more tender for me, I think, than sharing a song I've written with people. So I don't do it that often. I don't know why that is, because I've gotten some, you know, people have liked the songs, but that's just where I am in my journey right now as an artist. So yeah, but that's, thank you for the question. And then another, what are your thoughts on whether a person's moral compass is broken and or damaged when they wish ill on others? For instance, when Trump had COVID or when Rush Limbaugh announced he has terminal cancer, not necessarily wishing them ill, but not having any goodwill or wish for their well-being and recovery. Well, what I'd say is that many spiritual teachers, certainly in the Buddhist tradition, would say that wishing someone well, sort of moving on one side of the compass, is not that dissimilar from wishing them ill. It's wishing, you know, one side of just being unattached. You know, I think that that being not detachment, but non-attachment to outcomes is a deep spiritual principle that many traditions share, and is a wise course, certainly when it comes to people's health, because as a chaplain, we learned that there's good kinds of hope and bad kinds of hope. Giving someone hope in something that may not come to be, especially in a hospital bed, can be very damaging. And then the kind of hope that one might inspire in one's own faith, or the hope in the world maybe, or like a deeper kind of hope. But like to hope for just the outcome necessarily of just one person's health, whether it be bad or good, I would just say first, as a first point, there are many traditions that would counsel against kind of both. Don't do either. You know, more just say I'm praying for the best outcome, or I'm hoping for the best outcome for all. Now, when it comes to, so what I say is that, you know, in our tradition, we have the inherent worth and dignity of every person. It's inherent. What someone does with their inherent worth and dignity over their lifetime is a whole different story. It doesn't say anything about all of their future actions and all the things they do. And I can sometimes hope for the inherent worth and dignity of a person to come out, even if at the very end, you know, but to still really know that their actions that have nothing to do with the inherent, in fact, like their actions might be counter to their inherent worth and dignity. They've denied their worth and dignity to take actions that are dangerous and painful and harmful. I feel that I could wish that person to stop doing those actions that are harming others. And if that means being unattached to their health outcome, I don't really think that's I just don't find fault with that personally. I'm sorry if I'm attracting any ire or anything like that, but I do think of it, for me, if I go over the line to gleeful anticipation at someone's pain, then I've got some stuff I might want to look at with my spiritual director. But if I can be in a place of non-attachment with the outcome, I think I'm in good keeping with some faith traditions and some spiritual practices that are actually a good thing to practice and to identify in those moments. So, yeah. That being said, I just preached about justice, and there is a kind of homespun justice that we feel as humans when someone basically it's in every story when the bad guy gets what's coming to him. There's something in every story humans tell. We have the Justice League, we have the Avengers. So it's in the name, the Avengers. Like the most successful movie franchise of all time is about the bad guys getting what's coming to them in the end. So there's also just something deeply human in the human story, deep-seated about people who we think have it coming and get it. And ain't nothing wrong with seeing things go like that. So, yeah. But, yeah. All right. You didn't know your minister was like a borderline personality here. I think Allison's raising her hand.
Yes, I just wanted to add to that. We also have Dexter.
Yes.
Who I understand is coming back this year for a final season, final season.
Oh, I love Dexter. Oh my God.
Yeah, Michael C. Hall is one of the most talented people we've seen on screen over the last few decades, for sure. In particular, I have a personal problem with I get nightmares. Torture, aspects of torture, it literally just physically gives me nightmares. If it's in a movie, if it is. So I tried Dexter and I only got through a little bit, and at those pieces of it, as much as I get it and like I totally get it, I literally have nightmares. I'm just a sensitive little toadstool. So
I don't watch that part. I just see the beginnings of it and then the end of it. I don't need to see the middle part of it. Just
that's
but
brilliant.
just to know they got their due.
Yeah.
Especially during these times.
Yeah. And what I say about I've preached about this before, that the reason I think so many people like police procedurals and shows like that is actually it brings meaning to death. Like all we want in life is our lives to mean something. And if we're lucky that our deaths to mean something, that's at the heart of many religious stories, the basis of many religions. And so this idea of there being people who are going to give unsolved murders meaning and make meaning out of death is very attractive to me, and I think to a lot of people that watch those that shows. So there's something in there that again, part of these narratives that we have that go to the meaning of our lives. So yeah. Good.
I can recommend My Octopus Teacher.
Yeah, I've heard a few folks recommend that. I have not seen it yet.
Amazing.
Yeah. I actually was talking to a friend who's we'll get to you right after this, Beth. I was just going to say, a friend of mine is a captain on a boat and in Waikiki, and he has crew sometimes will spot an octopus, and they want to eat it. I mean, it's part of the deal working the crew. And once they grabbed the octopus and started butchering it in front of the customers, and it was such a culture clash because the person doing that was just doing what you do when you fish. But the tourists were so appalled because there is something about octopus that it's so weird and strange and beautiful, and it really upset a lot of the tourists. And so he, as the captain, trying to negotiate between the fun of the tourists and having to keep his crew happy, just had to have a rule. It's like you can pick up the animal, but you can't kill it in front of everyone. And something about octopus really, for some reason, he was saying people really reacted to that more than a fish. So it's interesting. But
and as TVs go, I would say the bigger the screen, the better.
Okay. Sorry, someone's got a fan belt issue outside that's hopefully gonna stop in a second. Hi, Beth, you had a question?
So I wondered if you could tell us what's happening with our church home. And are there people living there? Are there any things going on? Is the lawn being mowed? I drive by every day and I think of everybody, and we don't see each other and we don't see our church home.
Sure.
Right.
Well, I'm sitting in my current church home right now. But no, there are actually four different groups, four different tenants. There's a family on the 3rd floor, 2 regular tenants, and we actually have a 4th tenant right now who's a caretaker at one of the Episcopal churches in town, living in the room, my suite, my former suite, which was also the kindergarten. And so there are 4 folks occupying the full 2nd and 3rd floors. We transmit worship from there every Sunday, so we check it out. Many Saturdays, or I shouldn't say many, but a few Saturdays now. Soph Marav has been in there transmitting worship as well, certainly through the High Holy Days. I don't know whether groups are meeting there. There's a church policy on that groups just need to follow if they want to meet there. And right now it's mostly church groups. We're not, as far as I know, doing many rentals or anything like that. And I know some folks were meeting there recently to look at the playground and some work. Part of the benefit of the auction that's coming up, and maybe right after I finish this answer, maybe Janice would like to say something about that, is to do some work on the playground. For those of you who don't know, the fence is literally falling down. There are other aspects. It's a beautiful space and such an important space, not just for our families, but for all of us. And so taking some time and some capital to get the playground area expanded and cleaned up and safe sure is one of the things we'd really like to do. So that might be a good intro, Janice, if you wanted to say again to some of our friends who might not know what's going on.
Okay, let me start again with the announcement for those of you who came late. On behalf of the auction team, I'd like to remind everybody that our silent auction is going to be ending this Thursday, October 22nd at midnight. So the bidding is still hot, so go on and try to catch some of those last minute bargains that maybe will appeal to you now that you kind of passed by before. The other part of this announcement is on Saturday, the 24th from 6 to 8, our live auction begins. And our guest of honor is Mr. Rogers. It's going to be a great evening. We're going to have some activities and entertainment. There's going to be a lot of great items to bid on. Just to emphasize, your participation is really important for this fundraiser to be an event that's successful. TJ alluded to the playground, and I think that's something that the auction maybe is going to cover in a separate kind of announcement, and I'm not privy enough for the details to be able to speak to that, but some of that can be discussed a little bit later. So come Saturday night, talk to your friends, get them online, bid often, bid generously. We're going to have a great time.
And thank you, Janice. And then Beth, just to close on that question, yeah, the lawn care people are coming. Our internal cleaning crew comes once a month instead of once a week now because there's so much less traffic. Suzette goes into the office somewhat regularly to get checks, and I'm there every Sunday checking the mail as well. And 2 of the folks who live there are church members and also are monitoring the mail in the building. So all is being cared for and all is well. So yeah.
Black Lives Matter sign is still up, yeah. The second one didn't get torn down.
Pardon me, what's that?
Black Lives Matter sign didn't get torn down, the second one.
No, it's still there. I'm wondering what's going to happen closer to election time, but it is still there. There was also a sign that I put there that says, you can only see it if you're standing looking like you're about to cut it. It says, smile, you're on camera. So
You're on our fake camera, huh?
no, they are on camera. I wouldn't lie. The camera is active at the state site, but it's not recording. But it's live, so they can see what's going on there. So it is technically true that when they're there and driving on or coming on, they are on camera, but it's not actually recording. But it is true, they're on camera. So I have a feeling that at least some folks will, if they've gotten a few drinks in them and are deciding they think this is a good idea, if they read that, it might be enough just to stop them. So, yeah. So that's.
Can I say something about the playground?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm on the building use team as well as the auction team. So we do have $2,000 to fix up the fence already. It's not going to be part of the auction because it's a capital campaign, but I think the idea of improving the sitting area in the playground during COVID to have small meetings is a great idea because it's a lovely place to sit, especially during the day, and be safely meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Nancy. One of the things we talked about was just increasing the seating in there in a way that more families can be in there and we can meet in a way. I think they were talking about getting octagon tables instead of the regular picnic tables, so you can actually kind of sit even farther away from people and still be and still share a table. So yeah, thanks for that, Nancy. Beth.
So,
oh, you muted yourself again.
okay, no.
There you
go. So,
you're good. I got it. There we go.
okay. So you told us about the building. How about the people? How is our church family? Are there a lot of people that have lost their jobs? How are people coping? Are there people that are isolated in nursing homes? Have you been visiting people, or how have you been being in touch with people?
So mostly by telephone. When I hear that someone is ill or something like that, I speak with them. Often I'm alerted to this by folks from different groups, or or I hear it by email or something like that, and I reach out. In general, I'm not visiting people unless there's an exigent reason to do so. I've had a few requests for in-person visits, which I naturally did, in safe ways. I've also performed a graveside memorial for Dorothy Bornhorst. I'm sorry, for Marilyn Bornhorst, and functions like that. And as far as caring for our folks and how they're doing, my understanding is that presently we don't have a lot of people who have suffered great losses currently or a great, a large change in their job situation, that it wasn't also augmented by some of the relief through some of the unemployment benefits and things like that. So I haven't been alerted to a great many of those situations. There are some, but it's not like a large number. The Church Emergency Fund I've been very clear and open that it is there for folks who need it. Some people have availed themselves of it as needed. And my curiosity, and most people's, is if by January the eviction thing does not change, I do think that we will have some situations with that. Currently, there's a moratorium on evictions, and I think one of the things a lot of ministers are looking toward is the January 1 deadline, and it might even be sooner than that, where the CDC action preventing evictions will end, and people can be evicted. At that point, we might have some more emergent situations to take a look at, and for more people availing themselves of the emergency fund. So that's where things are currently. Our folks have been remarkably healthy. I know some folks who are in nursing facilities or in care facilities are feeling very isolated. And some of them are folks who, yeah, I'll just say that. So because the restrictions in those areas are profound. Like if you leave, there's all kinds of rules protecting those facilities right now. And yeah, it's not easy to be there for folks who are. So, yeah. Marie. You're muted. Now I'm worried you're frozen. Yeah, I'm sorry, Marie. If you can hear me, I think that you're frozen. Okay, we're getting at an hour or a little past an hour. Maybe Marie will log out and come back in. And but yeah, anything for the bonus round? No? Oh, I see Kimberly has her hand up.
The electricity came back on in Kaimaki.
Yes. I know many folks were without electricity for a little.
Oh.
Yeah. That's good.
In Kaimaki? I didn't know that. And I'm in Kaimaki.
Dan, he brought himself. Having a cloudburst here.
Yeah, it rained so hard here. I had to close the windows. It was getting on the computer in the desk earlier today when I was on the phone with Dennis. So, all right, Marie, are you unfrozen now?
Yeah, I was saying that all of those people that we used to visit, 4 or 5 places, it's nobody's, I mean, their family can't visit, we can't visit. I even suggested shoving Leia through the door and the person in there could take her through. Nothing, they have nothing. And then I realized on Arcadia, on their advertisement on the TV, she says, and they deliver, that she's doing it cheerfully, but they deliver our food to our rooms. That means they're in the rooms. They don't go to the dining room.
Yep.
You know,
the dining
it's nothing. It's nothing. And it's scary to me knowing what I've dealt with for the past 10 years doing this work, that they're all alone.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it looks like
On that happy note.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if there's any other questions folks have, I got some private or some other messages saying we should do this more often. And yeah, I'm happy to. And obviously, I'm not going to turn Pau Hana into the TJ show any more than it already is. But yeah, I'm glad we could talk at some of these things and could learn some together. And yeah, I hope everyone has a wonderful evening and a wonderful week. And I will see everyone very soon. I'm not sure, Allison, if you're waving goodbye or if you have another thing to say.
I have one other thing to ask.
Sure.
I know that you had mentioned at one point that you could re-show the little blurb that you did at the last service.
Sure.
About the auction.
Sure. We'll, sure, some people missed it. So what I'm going to do is end the recording, let folks go who want to go, but I'm going to show, I guess from Sunday, I did a recording at the beginning, or a movie at the beginning of service that not everybody saw. That's an auction advertisement. So I'm just going to say thank you to everyone and end the recording.